when a man with no enemies is murdered.
Everyone loves the guy. Just a country boy at heart.
In the most brutal fashion.
Neil was lying there, his face and head, I can only describe it as a bloody mess.
Everything points to one bizarre suspect.
This isn't a horseicide, but this is a homicide.
Summer 1993. In Lanesboro, Massachusetts, an idyllic farm is home to Neil Olson. A bachelor, he has no one to share the country life with until he meets Patricia Robinson.
This is Hannah.
Patricia was a divorced woman with 2 young children, and she met Neil Olson, and, well, he instantly fell in love with her.
36-year-old Neil doesn't waste time on a long courtship.
Will you marry me?
Yes, I will.
In the early days of the marriage, people said that Neil and Patricia seemed like 2 young kids in love, just 2 soulmates who had found each other.
Neil is soon not only a husband, but a full-time stepfather to Patricia's children.
Welcome. Good to see you. Come in. Hello. How are you, son?
She had been previously married and had 2 children, Amanda and Christopher. And the 2 of them raised them in Lanesboro.
So now that you're home, let's just say welcome to your new home.
I think for Neil, the relationship meant love and romance, and for Patricia, it meant financial security.
Oh, thanks, Mom. That's so cool. Thanks, Mom. Well, it's from the both of us.
Now we can keep track of you both.
She had a nice place to live. Her kids had a roof over their head.
Thank you. It's okay. You gotta turn it on.
Like many children, Christopher goes off the rails in his late teens.
I'm not doing this anymore.
Christopher goes out, he gets a girl pregnant, has a child, and he doesn't take care of the kid. He's a bum, basically. He doesn't want to work, doesn't want to go to school. All he wants to do is party, drink, and do drugs.
For hard-working Neil, it's behavior that won't be tolerated. He tries old-fashioned tough love to pull Christopher into line.
Neil would tell Christopher, take that dirt out of the basement and haul it out. And when he was done, he'd tell him, now haul all that dirt back into the basement.
No job, but I have a point to it.
You pick that up, or you're out of this house.
Neil's methods of disciplining Patricia's children were pretty harsh and pretty unreasonable.
You got me something to jerk off.
I've had it with you, boy. You couldn't even look after your own kid.
Christopher is starting to really hate Neil. Everything about Neil just rubs Christopher the wrong way.
You disgust me. I want you out of the house.
Good, I don't want to live here anymore.
Patricia doesn't argue with her husband, but secretly keeps giving her son money.
Christopher was destitute. He had no job. He was living out of his car.
It's not the only secret Patricia's keeping. She's up to her neck in debt.
She had a video rental store, and then after that, a restaurant. And neither one of them did well.
Patricia starts to do things behind Neil's back. Not pay this bill, not pay that bill. Fudge on the taxes a little bit. Her restaurant business is sinking. She owes this vendor, she owes that vendor. She's ciphering money from Neil from his sign business. She's taking money from here and putting it in here.
Soon, there is no more money to shuffle around, and the bank threatens to take their home.
Neil has all these animals, this big land, only a matter of years away from paying off his mortgage, and yet she was able to, in just a matter of years, sink them.
Neil is unaware of any problem until he is pulled over in a random police check.
A state police trooper discovered that all of the vehicles that the family had, there were 5 or 6 of them, were not registered, they were not insured, they were not inspected.
I just got pulled over and fined because my truck is out of registration.
Yeah, I've fallen behind on some of the payments, but I've been really busy. I'll sort it out, okay?
After about 10 years of marriage, not only was Patricia in fairly serious financial trouble, Neil didn't know it.
I said I was really busy. I'll get on to it, all right?
Yeah, well, do it
He was about to find out, and she did not want that to happen.
With her debts mounting, Patricia can't hide the problem much longer.
The closer he gets to figuring out exactly what's happened to all their money, that's when she starts leaning towards, gee, maybe Neil needs to go.
Patricia burdens her woes on the person she can trust the most, her son.
She knew he had a resentment for Neil,
We had an argument. He's becoming unbearable.
so she lied to her son, and she said Neil was beating her.
Christopher believes his mother's allegations of abuse.
She's a very manipulative person, capable of strong emotion, but I think that it's one of somebody who's an actor.
Everything will be fine.
Christopher, he starts thinking, you know what? Maybe I should kill him for all he's done to us.
Christopher will soon prove how far a son will go for his mother's love. Patricia Olson's life is in turmoil. She is hiding huge debts from her husband, Neil, and spinning lies
Unbearable.
to get sympathy and help from her son, Christopher. She makes up one more outrageous story to fuel her son's anger.
You know what? You hit your daughter, you understand? Baby, understand? You hit your daughter.
Finally, she pulled the last pin and told Christopher that Neil, in fact, had hit his infant,
He hit your daughter. He hit your daughter. You
who
understand?
his estranged girlfriend had brought over to the house. And that was the last straw. We don't believe any of this was true.
January 9th, 2005. The family fighting will come to an end.
Neil is a guy of habit. She knows that he goes out to the barn every single night, 11 o'clock, to feed his horse, Hannah. And then he comes up to bed. It's the perfect opportunity.
A loyal son makes sure his family problems are a thing of the past.
And he just can't face him. He closes his eyes. And he just fires. Fires the weapon right in Neil's face.
Neil was lying there, his face and head a bloody mess. He had been shot 9 times in the head.
Christopher begins a bizarre plot to cover up his brutal crime.
But Christopher now has to make it look like the horse did it. Let's blame it on the horse. So he gets a pipe and he just starts jamming it into Neil's head and body. Making a bloody mess. It's not a really good theory. It doesn't take a forensic expert to put A and B together that this guy was killed.
The following morning, like she always does, Patricia brings breakfast to Neil in the barn.
She took the sandwich in the bag and the coffee. And she says that she saw Neil, became upset, went back inside, made a frantic-sounding 911 call.
No, he's not responding. They think he's dead.
District Attorney David Capeless is one of the first on the scene. He's immediately suspicious of Patricia's story.
Tell me, what happened?
When I woke up in the morning, he wasn't there, so I figured he was feeding the horse. And then I came down and brought breakfast to him, and then I saw what happened.
And where the bag was found on the sidewalk, you couldn't see into the stable to even see him. We theorized that she dropped the bag in the coffee, went back inside, and called up. They mentioned the pipe. I said, wait a minute. This is something else. I said, call the medical examiner's office. We're gonna have an autopsy.
The autopsy reveals the truth. 9 bullets are found in Neil Olson's skull.
Chris seems to have not considered the fact that a medical examiner would be doing x-rays and find the bullet in Neil's head.
This is a homicide. This isn't a horseicide.
But police still don't know who is behind the brutal slaying of this loved local man until they hear that Christopher is mouthing off at a hotel.
He opens up immediately, and right away they know that he is definitely not the mastermind.
He made some mention about his mother and about his mother wanting him to do this. From that point on, the investigation not only was into Christopher, but also this potential link with his mother.
Incredibly, Patricia claims she never heard a single shot.
Patricia's story is she had this enormous headache and she couldn't sleep that well, so she took a couple of sleeping pills and that she was completely out. That's cruel and it's evil.
Patricia is lying. Her story doesn't match the evidence.
Discovered her cell phone, in fact, had been activated. She'd gotten phone calls, and even after 11:30, that the phone had been utilized by calling up and checking to see if there were any messages.
21-year-old Christopher Robinson pleads guilty to second-degree murder. He receives life, but is eligible for parole in 15 years.
That sentence tells me the judge took sympathy on Christopher.
He all of a sudden had all this remorse. He was being haunted by these visions. I believe that Christopher was pushed into doing something that he didn't want to do.
May 23rd, 2006. Patricia Olson is convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life behind bars with no parole.
Would she have done it herself? No. I don't think she had the gumption to do it, but she could push somebody else to do it.
She'll live out her days in the Massachusetts Correctional Institution, Framingham.
Patricia would be classified as an extreme narcissist. Everything's about her, and all the people in her lives are players. And it's a stage that she has created in order to get what she wants. My advice is don't marry Patricia Olson. You may end up dead.
The quest for perfection can be difficult.
She thought she should be with the Anointed One.
That's great.
Hard to achieve and full of disappointment.
It ended up something that was ultimately very, very dangerous.
In the late 1970s, in the town of Olathe, Kansas,
After the resurrection,
love
beside
blossoms.
which sea?
Sea of Tiberias.
That is correct.
David Harmon meets Melinda Lambert.
Now, whoever answers the following question correctly will be the new
They met at
Nazarene
Bible camp, where David was a really athletic, big, smart boy. He was a Bible quiz champion.
Pilate offered to release one prisoner. Which
He was really, really sought after. He was a catch there.
be released? Joseph, I think you did first.
It was Annas.
Her father was this major religious figure in the evangelical church.
I think it's Barabbas.
Congratulations. You are the new Nazarene Bible champion.
Their community has high expectations of the promising couple, who marry young.
At the time, function of those in the church and on this earth is to live their lives achieving a state of perfection that Jesus achieved.
What?
Honey, it's fantastic.
But even a golden couple can lose their shine.
Keep making some more of those. They're gonna be gone in seconds.
Obviously, a state of perfection is a hard thing to achieve, and even the attempt can cause certain problems along the way.
Yes, 3 p.m. will be fine.
Into their pious world walks temptation.
Yes, we'll see
Star
you.
University student
Bye.
Mark Mangelsdorf.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the student body president.
What can I do for you, Mark?
Well,
He was considered to be this superstar there at the university. He's a really smart kid. He's president of the student body. He was a handsome guy.
Coming tomorrow at 10?
10 a.m. works for me.
Melinda had a friendliness that seemed fuel-injected.
I hear you got quite a lineup this year.
It's gonna be the best one yet. Will you be coming?
I wouldn't miss it.
She'd lean in close, she'd giggle at what you said, she'd put her arm on your forearm when you talked. And he was kind of smitten by her.
Married Melinda won't break her sacred vows. But she does want Mark close by.
Melinda introduced Mark to David, and they became a trio of close friends.
Bless us, O Lord, for these your gifts, which we are about to receive.
This relationship allowed Melinda to have innocent time with Mark, with no one suspecting how she deeply felt for him.
How's the response to Revival Week?
Oh, incredible. The dean's
But secret desires take a toll on her marriage.
It's great.
What Melinda got in her husband David wasn't what she wanted.
I just can't believe that they would promote someone who's been there for 2 months. We're not being there for 2 years.
It really sucks, man.
She thought she should be with the anointed one.
Who won the game?
I did, I think.
David wasn't delivering.
Melinda and Mark don't have an adulterous affair. They start something more dangerous,
Hey, Mark, still off the hockey tonight?
Yeah, sure thing.
an obsession.
Her intentions were to be as close to Mark for as long as she could. What form this would take, I don't think even she knew at the time.
Melinda's desire is to be with Mark.
I can't do this anymore. Not while David is my husband.
But it's an unforgivable sin.
What if you weren't married anymore?
You know divorce isn't an option.
If you were heavily involved in a church, a divorce was very much frowned upon, would be a gross understatement.
We have to do something. I love you.
I love you too.
There is only one saving grace.
If David was to... If he died, then we could be together.
1982, in Olathe, Kansas. 25-year-old Melinda Harmon is unsatisfied with her husband, David. The preacher's daughter has strong desires for Star University student Mark Mangelsdorf.
Melinda saw in Mark sort of a way out, or a way toward a life that she had originally wanted. David stood in the way.
Divorce is a sin, according to Melinda's church. She plans for something more acceptable: becoming a widow.
Some women see divorce as a sin, but murder is okay.
"22-year-old Mark is willing to kill David and make it look like a home invasion.
David Harmon never saw his assailant, never woke up, and didn't know what was going on.
He bludgeoned David. 7 or 8 blows from a crowbar.
There was an extreme amount of overkill.
His head was crushed, and the eyeball, her husband's eyeball, popped out of his head and rolled along the floor. About an hour later, Melinda, with only a light bruise on her cheek, went running to neighbors. She told the neighbors that 2 black men had broken into her apartment, beat David to death, and knocked her unconscious.
They said they wanted the keys to David's bank. That's all I heard before they hit me.
And the intruders, how many were there?
2.
It was a very, very circumstantial case. It was what I used to call an eyebrow raiser.
And they were both black men?
Yes, that's right.
When you hear the evidence, you kind of think, wow, that kind of stinks. But, you know, an eyebrow raiser won't get you past proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
My friend's here. Can I go?
People began to talk. They began to talk about the frayed edges of Melinda and David's marriage. They began to talk about the strange closeness of Mark and Melinda.
With suspicion swirling around them, Melinda and Mark can't risk being together.
The last time they spoke was at the funeral.
Their crime of passion drives them apart forever.
I think Mark and Melinda were so clouded by their feelings for each other, they didn't think this murder out well. They didn't realize that after it was done, they really wouldn't be able to be together in that small town.
Melinda and Mark marry and raise families with different spouses.
She, the wife of a successful cosmetic dentist and the mom of 2 beautiful kids, and Mark on to Harvard Business School. This couple who plotted and executed a murder that defies description were able to have such successes in their lives and careers.
In 2002, prosecuting attorney Paul Morrison is asked to reopen the cold case. With no new evidence, it is a stab in the dark.
The Olathe Police Department met with our office and decided that we were going to send a team to talk to Melinda Raish and just hit her up cold.
Can I get your tea?
I've been reading through your statements. I need to ask you some questions.
When the detective arrives, he finds Melinda willing to talk.
Did you lie then? Did Mark kill your husband?
Her story changes.
You need to find yourself on the right side of this investigation.
She points the finger at her former lover.
All I saw was the shadowy figure of a man.
She starts telling the tale, and she talks about the guy as opposed to the guys.
I knew in my heart it was Mark.
And she had the sense that this man was Mark.
Okay.
The 2 black guys were suddenly off the hook.
Their 20-year secret is finally out.
She turned on him, and I think that's why Mangelsdorf eventually pled, because he knew that she was going to testify against him, and he knew that she was going to talk about his role in this.
Mark Mangelsdorf pleads guilty to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 10 to 20 years. In 2005, Melinda is found guilty of first-degree murder for agreeing to testify against Mark. It is reduced to murder too. She also receives 10 to 20 years in a Kansas prison. Melinda strives for a perfect life before her God and her community until a new man comes along. In the end, she's left with nothing.
You know, they're not thugs, they're not career criminals, they're not violent offenders. They're the kind of people that, before this happened, never in your wildest dreams suspect of being capable of killing somebody. But it happened. It's a very, very unnerving thing.
A woman with ambition.
All she needed in life to make her happy was money.
For wealth and independence.
She may have just hated him. She may have just wanted him out of the way.
Can be ruthless.
But I think she wanted the money.
(1992), Huntsville, Alabama. Twins Betty Wilson and Peggy Lowe enjoy each other's company. They share the same gene pool, but are very different individuals.
Peggy Lowe sang in the choir at a big Baptist church. She was a school teacher, and she was held in high regard. in the community.
Her sister Betty has a more flashy reputation.
Betty lived what some would call a liberated lifestyle.
It's a bit early to be drinking, isn't it? No.
And partied quite a bit. Did anything she wanted to do.
She collected things like fur coats, diamonds, jewelry. She had a pretty good collection of luxury items.
A nurse, Betty is married to wealthy ophthalmologist Jack Wilson.
She wanted to find a rich doctor. She was infatuated with money and with the status that a doctor could bring her.
Jack is quite a catch.
Look what I just got, Jack. Isn't it gorgeous?
Dr. Wilson was a one-of-a-kind guy. He was a generous man. He had a sign in his office that said, "If you can't pay, see the doc."
All right, Simon. Now then, let's have a look at these eyes of yours.
Dr. Jack Wilson was like one of those doctors that did everything for everyone. He was a great person to be around, to have as a doctor. He was just an outstanding guy.
There's no question he was one of the most beloved men in Huntsville, Alabama.
Well, you got a slight astigmatism, but I don't think you're gonna need glasses. Thanks, Doc.
But this generous doctor has health problems of his own. He suffers from Crohn's disease, an inflammatory bowel disorder.
Required him to wear a colonoscopy bag, which was very uncomfortable for him and apparently very odious to her.
Oh, honey. Do not disgust me.
Betty has no sympathy. She ridicules him publicly in the most heartless way.
She would say things like, "You make me sick, and I don't want to see you anymore."
Thank you.
She would do this before the personnel in Jack's office, for example.
She would say things to him like, "You disgust me," which probably in Jack's heart was his biggest fear, that he would ever disgust anyone because of his condition. And she played on that fear.
Repelled by her husband's condition,
Oh, you're too much.
Betty openly takes lovers.
Well, that is for sure.
Betty was notorious.
I'm just gonna reach in here.
She was very freewheeling. She was not abashed about her sexual encounters. Promiscuous would be an understatement.
Why, Jack? Come to get your briefcase. Bye-bye now.
She told Jack, and she was never going to have sex with him again.
The one thing Betty likes about Jack is his money.
I think she just wanted to live her lifestyle the way she wanted to live it. And she was quite opposite from her sister in that regard.
Betty's sister Peggy lives a very different life. She's known for helping those in need.
Feel like some lunch?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Like out-of-work handyman James White.
He'd been a loser all of his life. He had lost his children. He went from job to job, being a workman.
I'm doing pretty tough, actually.
Peggy met James through some work that she had done at her school. She needed bookshelves for her classroom. She learned that James Dennison White was a handyman in the area.
She sends him to her sister Betty, who has a job for him.
James Dennison White is and was a wretched human being.
I have something I think you'll be very interested in.
Hiring James White will propel the twins into a real-life tragedy the town will never forget.
He was a drug addict, he was a liar, he was a cheater, he was a deserter. He was a whole lot of bad things.
Soon, James adds one more thing to the list. Killer. Huntsville, Alabama, 1992. Betty Wilson likes a good time. She's bored with her 14-year marriage to ailing husband, Jack.
I think Betty married Jack Wilson for two reasons. Number one, he was an ophthalmologist, which probably meant he made a lot more money than most doctors do. And secondly, he was chronically ill with a serious, debilitating disease. She thought he would die.
In May 1992, Betty and Jack's marriage comes to an abrupt end.
James White was waiting for him inside.
What the? What are you doing?
They scuffled. James White picked up this baseball bat and meticulously beat Jack to death with it. It was a brutal murder.
Get out of my house!
Jack is left to die.
They found him beaten severely and stabbed at least twice.
It looks like a burglary gone wrong. Until the police receive a phone call from James White's former girlfriend.
The police zeroed in on James pretty quickly. They got a tip from an informant who said that she was a former girlfriend of James White and that he had talked to her in a drunken stupor about being hired to kill someone in Huntsville.
After he was captured, he told a series of stories.
James confesses, but insists he is a contract killer. And his alleged clients will stun officials.
He got around to admitting that he had been hired to commit the murder by the twin sisters.
James says his instructions come not only from Betty, but her twin sister, Peggy.
Said that Betty Wilson and Peggy Lowe hired him to go and kill Dr. Jack Wilson. And they were going to pay him $5,000.
Betty's disdain for her husband is well known.
Betty Wilson was viewed as a social climber, having affairs while married to this great Dr. Jack Wilson and all of the great things that he did.
Betty's reputation at the time of the murder would have been something else. It would have been a little more sinister. She had a reputation of being unfaithful to her husband and was held in low regard.
But the town finds it impossible to accept Peggy as a suspect.
Well, I think they were probably opposite extremes. Peggy Lowe was held, I guess, in high regard.
In Vincent, Alabama, Peggy Lowe was loved. They loved her. Everyone loved her.
There is no forensic evidence implicating either twin. But James's testimony and a library book checked out by Betty Wilson are enough for arrests.
They were connected by a library book, which was checked out from the Huntsville Library.
Ow! You are hurting me!
Where Betty had actually transferred some money to him, and he still had the book in his car at the time he was arrested.
The verdict is something only a jury can decide. James White is the star witness.
He worked out a deal where he would get a reduced sentence in return for testifying against the two women.
In court, as in life, the sisters are opposites.
Peggy was acquitted by the jury in her case.
There's absolutely no way she could have done any of this.
While Peggy is found innocent, Betty is found guilty of murder. She is sentenced to life in prison without parole.
The facts that we brought together painted the picture of a vile and contemptuous woman who had everything but wanted more.
Betty denies ever meeting James White, and to this day proclaims her innocence. Peggy supports her sister's claims.
Betty Wilson has no empathy for other people. She doesn't feel bad about hurting other people. It's hard for me as a registered nurse to say that about another registered nurse. But I do believe this to be true. Betty Wilson was a dangerous woman, and she still is. She's right where she needs to be for the rest of her life.
When you talk about a human life, it's something to value.
Buck Clinton knows exactly what his son's life was worth. $5,000. That's how much two lawyers paid to have him killed.
It's sad to think that people get to the point that they do. I may not be a saint myself, but on the other hand, there's a limit of what people do, and there's certain lines that individuals just do not cross.
Buck's son, Buzz Clinton, did nothing to deserve death.
Uh-oh, the magic carpet's starting to lift off.
His only crime, to fall in love with single mom, Kim Carpenter, and play dad to her daughter, Rebecca.
Kim and Buzz were extremely happy. They were two people who understood each other. And they really fit together well, those two, right? And Buzz really loved Kim's child, Rebecca.
1, 2, 3.
And wanted to be a father figure for that child.
You feel that? Is it heavy? Is it heavy?
Because the child did not have a father.
And this father will be taken away too, in a bitter family feud. Kim Carpenter's parents dote on their granddaughter. Her sister Beth is also fiercely protective of her niece. But they all have a big problem with Buzz Clinton.
They hated him from day one. All the Carpenters hated him. Beth Carpenter, the mother, the father.
To the rest of the Carpenter family, Buzz isn't worthy of raising a daughter because of his past career as a male revue dancer.
They looked at Buzz as he was this kid who was a dancer. So whenever they met, there were fireworks, you know, they didn't get along.
This was a guy that was, in their opinion, a loser, who took off his clothes for money and let women stuff $20 bills in his jockstrap. And they couldn't stand it.
Writer M. William Phelps says Beth Carpenter was a single-minded woman.
There was just the one Beth. She was all business, whatever she did. Beth Carpenter, when she set out to get something she wanted, she got it.
Beth's latest achievement is a law degree and a job with a Connecticut attorney called Heyman Klein.
In walks this beautiful, young, 30-year-old lawyer, fresh out of law school. And Heyman invites her right in and says, "You want a job? I'll give you a job."
Beth has begun her professional career and now begins a personal crusade. Her goal this time, to take custody of her niece, Rebecca.
She wanted the child, and she wanted to raise the child because she could do it better.
Sole custody case number 2064.
Never giving consideration to Kim.
Custody case of Rebecca Carpenter.
Beth Carpenter decided we're gonna have to fight for custody of that child, and we're gonna begin to show that Kim and Buzz are just not capable of raising that child.
The drawn-out custody case pits sister against sister in a vicious battle.
Beth began to just testify in court that, you know, Buzz is this, Buzz is that. Kim is this, Kim is that. Kim never comes home to take care of the child. What's gonna be different now? And ultimately comes down to, what is the judge gonna believe? And the judge sides with whom? Kim and Buzz.
For the first time in her life, Beth Carpenter doesn't get what she wants.
Beth and her parents believed that Kim and her husband Buzz were unfit parents, but apparently the court didn't see it that way. The court awarded custody of that child to her parents, to her own parents, to be with her mommy and daddy. And I think maybe Beth's a real sore loser.
She has taken the legal route, and it has failed her. Now, young attorney Beth Carpenter will take the law into her own hands.
This is her obsession now. Taking this child away from her sister. This is her life's work. She needs to do this. She started it, she's gonna finish it. There's only one thing left to do in Beth's mind.
Yo, what is this?
And that is to get rid of the problem.
Sole custody case number 2064. Rebecca.
Beth Carpenter is leading a spiteful family feud.
I find no evidence whatsoever of any child abuse in this case. And
She's lost a legal battle against her sister for custody of her sister's child.
This case is dismissed.
But Beth Carpenter will not be denied.
You know, my opinion of Beth Carpenter is that she's nothing but a conniving, backstabbing Miss Priss who thinks that she's entitled to anything in this world without any ramifications.
Somewhere along the line, Beth seems to have developed the idea that she was God and could take someone's life if she felt it should be gone.
Beth Carpenter has a deadly plan in motion. Her kisses never come for free.
Can you find me someone to get rid of this problem? And Heyman says, absolutely. I'll go right to my cocaine dealer, Mark Dupre. So the deal is $1,000 up front and $4,000 on the back end.
Dupre bides his time until fate hands him the perfect opportunity.
Mark Dupre is looking through the paper one day, and he notices an ad in there for a tow truck for sale. And who is selling that tow truck? Buzz Clinton. And he decides, that's it. I'm gonna call him up and tell him I wanna buy his tow truck. So, Mark Dupre goes and for some reason picks up his son and brings him along. So they meet Buzz Clinton at a local hotel, and Buzz is driving a car. And Mark says, where's it? Buzz says, I have to jump the tow truck. The battery's dead. Follow me, and I'll take you to it right now. Mark says, great. And they're driving to go look at this tow truck. And Mark Dupree is in back of them, and Mark Dupree flashes his lights at Buzz to pull over. Buzz pulls over right on the connector, right on the exit ramp, pulls over. Mark Dupree pulls over in back of him. Buzz gets out of the car, leaves it running.
Hey, buddy, what's this all about?
He comes out and he says, what's going on? Mark Dupree walks up to him with a pistol. And drops him right there on the interstate.
That night, Buck Clinton gets a call from his daughter-in-law that breaks his heart.
About 20 after 7, or a little after, shortly after that, got a call from Kim that Buzz isn't home yet. And then we got another call shortly after that by Kim and saying Buzz still isn't home. A friend had stopped by and said that his car is on the side of the road and somebody had been shot.
Buzz Clinton dies at the scene. Within months, a tip-off to police connects Mark Dupree to the killing.
So that begins the domino effect. You have the trigger man, then you have the guy who hired the trigger man, and then you have the mastermind, and those dominoes begin to fall.
Mark Dupree tells all about his murder-for-hire deal with Heyman Klein and Beth Carpenter. Beth denies it and blames her former boss and lover.
She begins to tell the police, Heyman Klein was obsessed with me to the fact that I told him that I had a problem with Buzz Clinton, and he took it upon himself to have him killed. Well, they asked Heyman Kleinman about that, and he tells a different story.
After testifying against Beth, Heyman Klein is sentenced to 35 years in prison. Mark Dupree is jailed for 45 years. And the harshest sentence is reserved for Beth Carpenter. Life in prison with no parole.
I myself was happy and yet sorrow at the same time, because here you have an individual who was young, brilliant, as Beth was, a life ahead of her, and through emotion, just made bad choices, and now is spending her life in prison.
For a woman who was once a gifted young lawyer, the fall from grace is complete.
She has now joined the lowlife of society.
Beth Carpenter is in a prison right now, and she can look out her prison window and she can see the connector where Buzz Clinton was murdered from her prison cell.
It didn't take much for Beth to kill her sister's husband, who never did anything to Beth. How safe do you think you'd be if she was out there?
It's wise to be wary of a stranger's smile.
She didn't come out of mean and vicious and venom-dripping poison.
Kind gestures can be misleading.
She was in charge. She was calling the shots.
The most deadly can look so normal.
The case is one of the most disturbing I've ever looked at in 30 years. And I think the reason is The leader of the killers was a woman, and she was the worst.
1979, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Judith Ann Adams is a 15-year-old cheerleader when she meets Alvin Neely, almost 10 years her senior.
I'm Judith. I'm Alvin. I ain't seen you around here before. Hey, now we got more exciting things to do than hang around in the trailer park.
Despite the age difference, Judith Ann is soon the dominant one.
It's a free country.
She was very smart. She liked using her intellect to manipulate other people, to push them around.
Be honest with you, he seemed like a big lapdog. He wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer.
How about we don't find ourselves a little place here? That's not very gentlemanly of you. Nice, pretty thing like you.
Just seemed to kind of worship Judith, really.
May you just love holding one of these. What the hell are you talking about, girl? You know, I feel dangerous when I hold the gun.
Soon after Judith enters 10th grade, they run off and get married.
They called each other Bonnie and Clyde and really thought of themselves as this extraordinarily adept outlaw couple.
But they're not, and are soon arrested during a robbery.
She was a strange girl. She really was.
Mike Raglan, a captain of the Rome, Georgia Police Department, remembers arresting a young Judith Ann.
She was very bitter. For a 16-year-old, several of us thought about that. She was really, really ice cold. It was kind of like venom or poison. You could look into her eyes and there were nothing there. It's like two caves.
In November 1980, Alvin and Judith are both convicted of armed robbery. Judith is still a minor and serves only 14 months in a youth detention center. There she gives birth to Alvin's twins. But motherhood doesn't soften her. On her release, she's determined to prove how tough she is.
She came out of there really, really, really mad at some folks.
Eventually, they found that stealing, robbing wasn't enough for them. They wanted to hurt people.
At a shopping mall in Rome on September 25th, 1982, 13-year-old Lisa Milliken is stranded. Her ride home hasn't arrived. She is in the wrong place at the wrong time.
When Judith Ann and Alvin picked up little Lisa, they knew her fate at that moment. The minute Lisa got in their car, her fate was sealed. They were sadistic sociopaths to the core. They enjoyed the suffering they caused other human beings.
When it's decided that Lisa is to die, Judith takes her out to a desolate area on this little river canyon.
In nearby Rome, Georgia police start getting strange calls.
One of the dispatchers called me into the office. I want you to listen to this.
A young woman claims to know where missing Lisa can be found. At the bottom of Little River Canyon.
I'm not saying she wanted to get caught, but she wanted the community to be shocked. She wanted to revel in her glory at what she had done.
But Judith's audacious calls will be her undoing because she says something revealing.
When she called in and used the phrase "on run," that set off a few alarms in the police department in Georgia.
It is a key clue for police, as juvenile offenders tend to use the expression "on run" rather than "run away."
Because the feeling was that this was a phrase that would only be used by someone who had known or been in the custody of the youth authority.
They put together a list, and there's about 10 girls.
But as police are narrowing down their list of suspects, Judith and Alvin are moving on to their next victims. Just 5 days later, they befriend John Hancock and his wife, Janis Chapman, on the side of a road. They convince the unsuspecting couple to go on a country drive. They don't realize they've been kidnapped.
She takes a pistol, and she marches him up into the woods and shot him in the back.
She was getting rid of the alpha male so that she could have his partner, Janis, all to herself.
Being a mother of 3 doesn't stop Judith's depravity. In a cheap Nashville motel room, her new captive is held in front of her children. They will be the innocent witnesses to their parents' brutality.
Janis was then repeatedly raped by Alvin.
Judith's sadism escalates.
Judith Ann enjoyed telling her kidnap victims what she had done to other girls that she had kidnapped.
I put this in his back like this and just like, bam! It's like that. And she'd never fall over the edge. You know, going backwards and pushing myself.
She enjoyed scaring these young women.
And I took it right into her neck.
It was as much fun for Judith Ann to instill panic and fear in these victims as it was to physically and sexually torture them.
Janis's horrific ordeal goes on for 24 hours. When Judith decides it is time for it to end, the only mercy is she makes it quick.
I see. Now you stop.
They did not find her body until it had deteriorated quite a lot.
This time, there are no bragging phone calls to police. The deadly couple move right on to their next victim.
You only knew how many people I'd killed with this gun. You would be begging me to die because the devil ain't got nothing on
But police don't need any more clues. They have an extraordinary breakthrough. John Hancock, shot and left to die 3 days earlier.
She thought he was dead. Now, he don't die. He crawls back down the dirt road.
Rescued by a passing motorist, John tells police that Janis is being held by a couple with young twins. It's the crucial clue. Police refer back to the list of juvenile offenders.
The only name on that list who had had twins was Judith Neely.
Police soon track Judith's vehicle to a hotel room. They are too late to save Janis Chapman. But incredibly, they find their latest victim alive.
We really don't know why Judith Ann became a sexual sadist who preferred females. We don't know if someone tortured her sexually when she was a little girl, or the opposite, which is that she was simply born this way, and this is a sexuality that she discovered that she liked.
Alvin Neely makes a full confession. He receives 2 life sentences. Judith Neely is sentenced to death.
To me, she's a sociopath. I think has no emotions and no remorse.
Had they not been stopped, they would have gone on and on and on.
In jail, Alvin shocks investigators by confessing there are more victims.
Alvin told us they killed other people, you know, and We had detectives coming to the Rome Police Department after this thing was from Alabama, Southern Alabama, Mississippi, South Georgia, and didn't know who they were and never could identify them.
In 2005, Alvin dies behind bars. His secrets go with him. Judith Neely is still very much alive. A governor's reprieve in 1999 sees her death sentence commuted to life.
I don't know how many she killed, unless she decides maybe someday to get a clear conscience about it. We're not gonna know, not gonna have an idea. I hope she'll be watching this program and invite me over to let's clear up all these others. And that would be really something that I would like for her to do.